Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2024. This is program number 1197 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calixte George Jr. Now, in addition to radio 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website. It is rcisainusha.com. We are also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And of course, please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. Now, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, that's the main landline number here. It is 452-3046. You can also reach us by sending a message in on WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. Again, if you want to reach us via WhatsApp, you can call in or you can message in, and that is 724-0008. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 618 AD, witness on this day the coronation of the Chinese governor Li Yuan as Emperor Gaozu of Tang, the new emperor of China, initiating 3 centuries of the Tang dynasty's rule over China. In 1812, on this day, June the 18th, the War of 1812 began, and that was as the United States declared war against Britain. In 1815, the Battle of Waterloo saw Napoleon Bonaparte and France being defeated by British forces under the Duke of Wellington and Prussian troops under Field Marshal von Buchler. In 1921, on this day, American aviator Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, landing at Bury Point. She was actually a passenger in that trip. And in 1940, Winston Churchill gave his famous "This was their finest hour" speech to the House of Commons, urging perseverance in the war after the Dunkirk evacuation and the fall of France to the Nazis. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today, for this Tuesday. And of course, we are in the throes of quite a lot of excitement here in St. Lucia, thanks to the West Indies cricket team. And they, in fact, played their final match in the group part of the ICC Cricket World Cup men's tournament. That, of course, has been going on across the Caribbean as well as the United States, and there's been, of course, a lot of interest being paid with respect to the tournament, and of course the West Indies cricket team in their group C, and that included the likes of teams like Afghanistan, as well as Uganda, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. The favorites in that group were, in fact, the West Indies and New Zealand, and the system as it has been developed for the tournament, in fact, seeded certain teams. So once they qualified, their sort of position and their flow through the rest of the tournament would kind of been already sort of predetermined. And so West Indies was always earmarked to be what was known as C2. And so you could pretty much predict how things would have gone if the major teams won. But of course, there was a significant upset, one of many, but in our group, that being that of the New Zealand team. They, of course, a very long-standing test-playing country, long-standing one-day and T20 playing country and team. They were not able to make it. In fact, up until last night, Afghanistan was in fact the leader of that group. West Indies at that point, going into the match, was in fact in second place. But they were able to do a yeoman work, great performance out in the at the wicket in the first instance. They were sent in to bat by Afghanistan. They took that decision and made the best of it. And my hope, of course, was that they were going to be able to make about 200 runs and to put a competitive score on the board. The night before, we in fact saw at the Darren Sammy Cricket Ground the Sri Lankan team putting on 201 runs for a win, they defeating that of the Netherlands. And so a score of 200, of course, would have been, in my view, very competitive against Afghanistan, albeit, of course, they were playing very, very good. And I think the West Indies was, in fact, able to exceed that target, in my view. And they, of course, ended up with 218 runs at the end of their allotted 20 overs. Very good performances coming from the homeboy, none other than Johnson Charles. He put on, I think, about 43 runs in his innings. Unfortunately, he was out-caught at a point when one thought he was actually going to be looking to stay around alongside his other opener, who was, I believe, well, actually, no, it wasn't King, but it wasn't, Puran. But Puran did actually stay around for a pretty good while as well. And in fact, ended up achieving a 50 and getting up to the highest score of the tournament thus far, making 98. And he was heading for that century. It looked pretty positive in the last over, but unfortunately he got run out when trying to come back for a second run and to maintain his strike. Of course, that still meant that he ended up being man of the match with that very, very fine performance indeed by himself, of course, and his compatriots. We've been seeing lots of great personal achievements, carrying the team along. We can think back, of course, to that near collapse of West Indies in Trinidad, where Rutherford had to come and save the day with a very wonderful innings. But the West Indies got off this time to quite a start. I think at one point they were, in fact, about 18.25 runs per over. That was their run rate for the up to the fourth over. And certainly a tremendous performance on the pitch, batting. It then meant that there was quite a lot of pressure on the Afghanis, and in fact, they didn't start off too well, and with some very sensible decisions being made by West Indies captain Powell, decision to start off with some spin, and I think we saw some pretty good efforts by the spinners to contain and to diminish or attenuate the runs very early on, which only added to the pressure that that was faced, of course, by the Afghans. And they, in fact, were not able to ever get to that point where they were comfortable. They lost early wickets. And in fact, again, my thought was that they would have probably ended up making somewhere about 140. And they were not even able to make that. They, in fact, got bowled out with a good number of overs to go. I think about 4 overs to go, not making more than 120 runs. And so certainly the West Indies performed exceedingly well, both with bat and ball. And I think that is a very positive position to be in. Of course, they've topped their group. They are heading in to a very important match against England tomorrow. And I think this win would certainly give them lots of confidence that they're going in to be very, very competitive. Clearly, the English will be looking and noting how they've been performing. And it's going to be a very interesting match, a very fair match, no doubt, come tomorrow evening. Lots of kudos out there being offered to the organizers, and in particular the individuals who prepare the pitch. And of course, we can singularly mention Mr. Crafton and the work that he has done in perhaps putting out there certainly some of the best pitches available in this tournament. A lot of accolades being provided by commentators and followers of the game that the pitch in St. Lucia has been exceedingly good in terms of maintaining good bounce and of course a very fair pitch for batting as well. So it certainly is going to be a major event tomorrow. Lots of kudos also coming in terms of the overall improvements to the facility. I think lots of interest was paid towards the lighting show that, of course, was at every sort of halfway through each innings, kept some good entertainment and crowd interaction at the DSCG. And so let's hope that we can continue to see a good tournament as St. Lucia continues to put itself out there proudly representing West Indies cricket. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to touch on a few other things that are happening, including an unfortunate incident over in Barbados, which has led to some significant cultural heritage loss.
This has been Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 4523046. Again, 4523046. And as well, you can message in or call in to our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Now, unfortunately, saw some images coming out of Barbados, and many people have, of course, generally thought that Barbados does a pretty good job of protecting its heritage, especially in terms of its built heritage, the architectural styles that exist in Barbados, from whether it may be a chattel house right up to a great house, and lots of different mills, the windmills, and what have you. It certainly has been a place of great character in that regard. And of course, even the garrison, for instance, and that collection of military buildings around that area have been part of and have been assimilated into a World Heritage Site, in fact, known as Bridgetown and its garrison. And it's, of course, instructive because quite a number of the sites that we have recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage Sites in the Caribbean are, in fact, what would be considered natural sites. So, for instance, the Petors Management Area in St. Lucia, which is, in fact, very soon, in fact, I think this month, marking its 20th anniversary. In June of 2004, that was actually approved as a World Heritage Site. It's a natural site, of course, with the Petors and the Sulphur Springs. That's what's important with it and the views that you get of it. And, of course, in Dominica with the Mont Trois Pitons being recognized as well, and many other sites in places like Haiti, for instance. But there are, in fact, some very notable cultural sites in the Caribbean, including places like Sans Souci, I believe, over in Haiti, a significant fortress in the north of Haiti, the Citadel, built by the revolutionary forces of individuals in the newly independent Haiti, which was still very much at war and afraid of the potential for conquest and for reconquest, I should say, by the French and everybody else, the Spanish, the Americans, the British. And so they, in fact, made a significant investment. And these, in fact, have become recognized as World Heritage Sites. Barbados has had that aspect of it in terms of its cultural heritage, and to the extent that, in fact, Bridgetown, the capital of Barbados, has, in fact, gotten that recognition as a World Heritage Site. And of course, notable features within that space would be the cathedrals, the religious buildings of Barbados, the St. Michael's Cathedral, as well as St. Mary's Church on the other end of Bridgetown, as well as the Nideh Israel Synagogue, which is believed to be the oldest synagogue in the Western Hemisphere, I believe it is, in fact. So certainly a very significant collection of historic buildings exist and are still maintained. The Parliament building, the old Parliament building around near what was National Heroes Square, and other historic buildings have been, in fact, preserved or restored over the years over in Barbados. And unfortunately, they've, in fact, gotten a significant blow as a result of a fire. And this fire, in fact, has destroyed a block of part of their national archives. And archives are so very important because museums, archives, they in fact are the repositories of a country's culture. And archives in particular, they capture the historic record quite often. They capture the literature. They capture what was going on in a country over a period of time in the past. And quite often, of course, when we read so many stories or historical facts, these are coming out of documents, out of civil registers, military records, records that may sometimes be very monotonous, to be quite honest. Things like the tax collections and the tax lists and who's paying what. A lot of it comes about that. I mean, one of the oldest records coming out of England is known as the Doomsday Book, and it's really just about property, and who's in charge of what property and what's on the property. And you find that quite often you get so much information out of these types of records. Of course, it would also involve the very unfortunate aspects of history during that time too, which might very well include information about ownership of slaves. And because remember, again, they were considered, our ancestors were considered chattel, they were considered property. And so there were property records relating to human beings who were enslaved. And so the historic record is very important. Now, unfortunately, in the case of St. Lucia, we have lost a lot of records over the years, and in part due to fires. And there have been many fires in the history of the town of Castries, and these go far back into time. A well-known one is of course, the 1948 fire, the most recent significant one, but there have been others in 1951, for instance, which destroyed parts of the Chaussee area. There have been fire even before 1948, another major one in 1927. There have, of course, been other forms of destruction, like an earthquake, a significant earthquake back in 1906. There's been, of course, hurricanes like the 1780 hurricane, which caused lots and lots of destruction in Barbados and St. Lucia and many other islands. Fires in 1796 as a result of warfare going on during that period. So we have seen a significant loss of records ourselves over the years. And in fact, some people may also suggest that sometimes the destruction of records is deliberate. And that's another factor that has to be understood, that sometimes people actually go out there, to erase what may be considered dangerous information, or may place certain aspects of history in a bad light, or they want to retell the story. In fact, it was very, very common, as we were reading about earlier on in the history of China. Every new dynasty that came tried to erase the history of those who came before, and that was quite a very active action that they saw as recasting their story. And of course they created myths sometimes to make themselves seem more important and whatnot. And this happened across civilizations all around the world. The same can be said of Egypt, for instance. After there was of course the very famous Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, who tried to dissolve the pantheon and change the religious system and bring forward a sort of a monotheistic system of faith to Egypt. The pharaohs that came after him, they tried to erase his memory. So that is also something that we have to also appreciate, that during that colonial period, there was a fair bit of erasure as well. And so it makes, of course, the challenge of understanding what really happened even more difficult. And so that's why the other important leg that our memory stands on is that of archaeology. And archaeology is, digging into the science of what we can see with still exists presently. And that's a really important one. And of course, maybe now we can also talk of a third leg, which is somewhat related to archaeology from a scientific perspective, but also that of DNA and genetics, and what the genealogy actually is telling us about ourselves. And so in the case of Barbados, unfortunately, they ended up just yesterday, I believe, last night, they lost a building, a Block D, I believe it is, which is part of the National Archives. And in fact, that block, in fact, held some of the oldest records of Barbados. And so I think we do have a clip of the minister in the office of the Prime Minister, Miss Monroe Knight, speaking, and she has responsibility for culture, speaking to the loss and the devastation that occurred over in Barbados in that regard. I think we're trying to get that sorted out for you, and we should have that clip available soon enough. Please bear with us. I think we may be having some technical issues trying to sort that out. But of course, let's also hope that it is a wake-up call for ourselves, because we, of course, as I mentioned, have already lost so much by way of our own records. For instance, there's a lot of interest now in terms of slavery and genealogy. We're just speaking about that. And we in St. Lucia don't really have these slave registers. And these registers, in fact, in the case of St. Lucia, because of our history, we became what is known as a crown colony in 1814, 1803, I think, about that, in the early 1800s. And what that meant was that we were controlled directly by the colonial office in London, and it was a little different in the other islands like Barbados, like Antigua, like Jamaica, where they in fact had more control at the local level. There were these legislative assemblies that existed that played a stronger role. And so in the case of St. Lucia, Trinidad, and Demerara, British Guyana, we in fact were crown colonies. And it meant that the record keeping was a little bit more well developed, especially in terms of the slave records. And so there were these triennial censuses, if you want to call them that, where there was returns sent in of each estate and the individuals, the enslaved peoples on those estates. And that actually meant that there was quite a lot of information collected about even the heights and the origins of individuals, the names of the individuals, which exists for St. Lucia but does not exist for, let's say, a Barbados or an Antigua. And so in that sense, we were very fortunate. But in fact, our own collection of these records, unfortunately, in the main, does not exist here in St. Lucia, because they apparently have been lost in time, whether through natural or other causes. And so that information, thankfully, was still available in other parts in the United Kingdom and their archives. And so individuals who have been doing research even up to today, in fact, I find out very, very interesting stories coming out of those records, and what it in fact is as what we can learn about ourselves. And so we're now in a position, of course, where we've got those sources coming from the outside, if you want to think of it that way. But we still, in fact, do have some of our own records, which certainly should be conserved for posterity, for future research, for the benefit of our society, and so certainly I think it's a good opportunity to be mindful of the fragility of these records, because in some instances they may very well only exist right here. And so therefore in those situations, when you've just got one of something, it's a crisis. You are at a great risk. And of course this has been the challenge of the National Archives Authority. It would be wonderful if they can in fact ensure that everything is digitized, that everything is backed up, is scanned, and that could then be put into the cloud, that could then be secured for the use of for everybody, for posterity. And but unfortunately, of course, we have not gotten to that point yet. Just like in the case of Barbados, they had not gotten to that point yet either. And so we sometimes end up losing a lot of information that puts us at a significant risk. So we should definitely think at this time a learning lesson of what has just happened in Barbados. We've seen it happen in our past over the years as a result of fires in the town of Castries. We've seen it more recently with respect to the Folk Research Center, and that happened in March of 2018, and that significant loss there. And it's something that can happen again. So let's certainly guard ourselves and take the necessary steps regarding protection in that regard. Now, we're actually due for a weather break, but we're taking a call at this time before we head to the weather. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yes, good afternoon. In light of the recent incident in Barbados, there is need to make those historical buildings and their contents, more resilient.
Yes.
But at the same time, one must also try to digitize the records to ensure that you have a digital archive.
Definitely.
So in the event that you have such a disaster, then you have your digital record that you can refer to.
Definitely. Thanks for that intervention, caller.
Yeah.
And in fact, in the case of Barbados, it's very unfortunate. It is believed to have been a lightning strike that has caused it, and that's the thing. We never know what can happen. And of course, fires are one aspect, but hurricanes are another major one. And of course, we can also speak to the issue of Radio St. Lucia. And records now are coming in many different forms. So they're not merely coming in paper anymore or in books, but they're coming in, obviously on print material, so they might not be photos, but they might very well be audio records. And in our current world, we're speaking about digital records as well. So lots of that has to be thought of from a holistic perspective, to look at the importance of records, importance of information management, and the role of institutions like libraries, like museums, like archives in fact protecting and conserving this for posterity. I believe we're due to take in our weather report, so we can perhaps take that in at this time if we've got it available.
Thank you. Yes, we do, Calixte. Thank you so very much. It's now time for the weather report here on Radio Caribbean International. The weather report is as of 12 noon today.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
It is the 18th day in the month of June, and the forecaster this hour is Webster Gajada. The forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east and the east-southeast near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy and hazy with some scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. A gradual improvement is expected overnight. Again, the winds blowing between the east and the east-southeast near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour, with the weather partly cloudy to cloudy and hazy with some scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. The gradual improvement is expected overnight. A look on over now to the marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. For the Castries Harbour, the high tide now being, at 11 minutes after 2, and the low tide will be at 26 minutes after 6 this evening. For the Vieux Bay, high tide will be at 18 after 3 this afternoon and the low tide at 7 minutes before 8 tonight. The seas are slight to moderate, the waves 3 to 5 feet, the same as 0.9 to 1.5 meters in open waters. For the Lesser Antilles, it's partly cloudy and hazy with scattered light to moderate showers and isolated thunderstorms, and a gradual improvement is expected overnight as well. The tropical weather outlook. The Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate light to moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean over the next couple of days. Lingering moisture and instability in the wake of a tropical wave will cause cloudiness with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. And an increase in Saharan dust haze will cause a reduction in visibility and air quality across the eastern Caribbean region during the forecast period. A tropical wave located over the eastern tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. Tropical weather outlook recap. The Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate light to moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean over the next couple of days. Lingering moisture and instability in the wake of a tropical wave will cause cloudiness and scattered showers and also isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. And an increase in Saharan dust haze will cause a reduction in visibility and air quality across the eastern Caribbean region during the forecast period. And there's a tropical wave which is located over the eastern tropical Atlantic, which is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. That is the official weather report. Join us again in the morning at around 6:30. We'll have the next report here on the station from the Met Service. The forecaster for this hour was Webster Gajada. Thank you, Webster. And that's the weather report.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom and of course we do hope that you're enjoying your day, and if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, that number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. There's also a meeting of Parliament going on right now in Castries, and one of the matters up for debate is an amendment to the Citizenship Act here in St. Lucia. And one of the major changes is, in fact, allowing for an expansion of citizenship by descent. So, of course, right now, if your parent was born in St. Lucia, but you happen to be born somewhere else, you would be able to get citizenship, or you'd be eligible for citizenship by descent. But it does not currently apply, I believe, to your grandparents. So, in other words, if you go down another generation, there's no provision for that at the moment. So, in fact, this amendment is, in fact, allowing for what you would say as third generation individuals who may have, let's say, potentially, they may have migrated to another part of the world, and they would like to actually apply for St. Lucian citizenship. They can now, they would now be able to do so based on this legislative amendment, which of course is a good move, certainly in terms of broadening the diaspora and tying in the diaspora, the St. Lucian diaspora, around the world. And so, of course, you've got a lot of interest sometimes by third generation individuals who now want to reconnect, hearing more about St. Lucia. They want to know more about their ancestry. They want to identify more with their Caribbean heritage. And this is certainly an opportunity to be able to do just that. A number of countries have made these changes. A number of countries, in fact, allow for this to exist. Very famously, Ireland has, in fact, offered citizenship. I think in the case of Ireland, it goes as far as fourth generation, I think. I think your great-grandparents could have been born in Ireland, and then you can, in fact, gain citizenship by virtue of that. So, and it of course, one of the reasons for that is because in the case of Ireland, they went through a period of significant outward migration, especially from starting off in the mid 1800s. The great potato famine of Ireland caused large numbers of Irish to leave Ireland and head to the United States of America principally, but also, of course, to other parts of the world, including Canada and Australia, New Zealand. And so there's a very, very large Irish diaspora in the United States. And so, of course, when you look at the number of generations we're talking about from the 1850s, you can well appreciate the distance in time and the number of generations that have already passed. So that's why they would definitely provide these types of opportunities for citizenship. Some countries offer it on other bases. In the case of Israel, for instance, any Jewish person is eligible for citizenship in the state of Israel. And that is, of course, why we've seen a significant number of Jews coming from all around the world, from Europe as well as Africa. And in fact, you can also gain it if you're a converted Jew as well. And so, in as much as we've been speaking about quite a bit about citizenship by investment, the importance of diaspora investment, right, is also something that we definitely have to think about as a country. And so there lies the opportunity, certainly, for greater participation of the diaspora, if in fact they can gain a passport and they can do that. So certainly, it's the right direction to go. And as I said, lots of countries have that on offer. I think Poland is a similar thing. Your great-grandparents could be from Poland, and that holds. In Portugal, it actually goes as far back as if your parents were, or your ancestors were Sephardic Jews, right? And who in fact fled the Iberian Peninsula during the Inquisition period. So we're talking about going as far back as the 15 and 1600s in the case of Portugal. And so it is certainly something very interesting to look at in terms of whether, in fact, I mean, this is a really good first step. Maybe we might even have to take it even further. But let's take a call at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yes. In 1796, the British Army rounded up our Negmawa army that was located on the Mon. They were under siege.
Yes.
And eventually they were deported to the UK as prisoners of war.
Yes, that's correct.
It's interesting to find out what happened to, the descendants of those people.
Right.
So we can actually track them and, and see if, they can actually establish their links to St. Lucia again, the descendants, that is.
That's an excellent point, caller. Thanks for that one, for certainly. And of course, that caller is referring to that same period of 1796 when Abercrombie led the British fleet, British army to invade St. Lucia. And there were an estimated nearly 3,000 prisoners of war which were taken from the Caribbean, St. Lucia as well as St. Vincent, Grenada, but St. Lucia in the main, in particular that battle on the Morn, and they were sent across to England, to Portchester Castle. And there is in fact some research that has been done by some individuals, researchers up there, that in fact pointed out that in some instances these individuals, many of them died due to poor treatment. They were not given proper clothing. Obviously they were not acclimatized to some of the conditions getting there in the winter period. Some were lost in shipwrecks. Famously, the boat, the London, it was called, which crashed on the rocks off the coast of Devon, England, in a place called Infracombe. And but there were a number, of course, which made it to these castles, which were where they were being kept, including Portchester Castle, and some of them made their way back to the Caribbean because they were prisoners of war. They were traded as prisoners by the French. In fact, some of them went to France and were kept on the island of Ai because they would try to isolate them and separate them from the main population. But there in fact, were some who did integrate into British society. And so very, very important point being made there in that regard. Of course, there have been St. Lucians moving around for quite a long time. And Jean-Baptiste Bidault, when he was fighting the Spanish in Latin America, in Gran Colombia, for Venezuelan independence, for independence of Latin America, is recorded to have in fact come to St. Lucia because he, of course, was a very active individual in charge of the Navy of the Eastern Navy of the revolutionary forces over in Venezuela. And he came to St. Lucia and brought, I think, as many as 200 soldiers who had, in fact, been part of that struggle from before, from the 1790s. And he brought those men to fight in Venezuela. And so there, in fact, are people in the La Guira province of Venezuela who know that they are descendants of individuals who were, in fact, came from St. Lucia. And so, as to whether, in fact, there will be possibilities for them and for integration and for cooperation, we never know. And, of course, so many other St. Lucians who went to the Guianas, to Suriname, to Guyana, British Guyana, to Portuguese Guyana as well, in Brazil. They, of course, there are ties there that many St. Lucians went to Panama as well, and other parts of the Caribbean for work. And so that certainly is a very interesting story to develop, and maybe even a wonderful project in terms of reconnecting with the St. Lucia diaspora. I know in the case of Guyana, of French Guyana, Guyane, Cayenne, there's in fact quite a lot of effort being placed now by the consulate based in Fort-de-France, and Miss Alison Joseph, who is the consul general over there, has been trying to engage quite a bit with the community, the people who identify as being St. Lucian descendants over in French Guiana. And that population has been a really important, one can say almost foundational population in Cayenne. that was a place which was a penal colony, which many people did not want to go to. And many St. Lucians were the ones who went over there and helped to develop French Guiana. And so they certainly have done very well and have found themselves in high offices and making significant contributions to the society over there. So certainly some possibilities exist for those continued connections. But we'll have to continue that. Maybe just try to squeeze in one call before we end. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. And what's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I just want to say flow, they're not flowing well enough. Too many times there's a little break and everything just going dead. Like the phone, the internet, like trying to make a phone call is dead. And it's happening too often now. And there's nothing to give you, like, maybe to help you with that, maybe a backup. Because when those things go, it's a problem.
And you're speaking about your landline, your fixed phone? Okay.
Yes, because it's a bundle I have. Everything is...
And it's all, it's now dependent on your internet.
And then you increase like by $5 each time. So I just give people, and first of all, I say they're very nice. When I call them, they have to come and do something, they come immediately and everything. But still, at the end of the day, come on, flow better than that.
Yeah, well, I hope they're paying attention, and I know it's been a big ask, especially for people who've been used to their landlines. I had to make that transition regarding using the newer system. So I really hope that those teething problems can go away, and we can get a more reliable service caller.
Sometimes the television, the cable, they're just sticking the problems. Everything just go blank.
Yeah.
Problem all the time. And my last comment is, the Olympics is just around the corner, but I'm only hearing about Julian Alfred. I know that's a potential medal for us. But what about the others? Michael Joseph. The others, I have not heard how many other young people are going for a thing, but come on, I think they should give the others some kind of spotlight too, because Michael Joseph is qualified around the same time as Julian Alfred.
Well, you're right. We're in June now, and so we're not too far away. So I'm hoping, that we can hear something from the local Olympic Committee in terms of the details.
Everybody knows Julian is going, but what about the others?
Good point. Very good point, caller. We definitely need to
start spotlighting them, so at least, even though they don't medal, but at least they are support.
Right. Definitely.
Okay.
Thanks for that, caller. Have a good one.
Bye.
And we're going to have to end it at this point. Hope you can join us tomorrow for another program here of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calixte Jr., saying goodbye.
And the time is now 5 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, and that's a wrap on the Lunchroom until tomorrow, God's willing. Up next is your digital half hour.
Is the Caribbean sound. Radio Caribbean International. #1.
Plug into Digicel Plus Home Fiber Internet and get even more entertainment with Disney Plus included. Stream the best of Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic all in one place. whenever you want. Plug into Digicel Plus. Enjoy Disney Plus and much more with a home fiber bundle starting as low as $136 per month. Enjoy lightning fast speeds starting at 250 megabytes all the way up to 1 gig. Sign up for Digicel Plus package at a Digicel store or call 106 for more information.